Hello, this is 0.2 lesson, and we're going to talk about adding and subtracting fractions today. So this should be somewhat familiar to you because you have done this in elementary school, but there are a lot of things about adding and subtracting fractions that can be tricky. There's a lot of parts and pieces to go together. So if you're not sure, you might need some extra practice. You might need to check with the teacher. You might need to do some practice at home. So we're going to go over the very basics of adding and subtracting fractions today. First thing we're going to talk about is to add or subtract with the same denominator. Denominator. Okay, so to add and subtract with the same denominator is the very simplest kind of fraction to do. All you have to do is add or subtract top number and then keep the same denominator. Little abbreviation there, so hopefully everyone gets that. So my example for you is if we have 1/5 and we're adding together 3/5, basically we're saying that both of our numbers are written as fifths. This one has 1 out of those 5, and this one has 3 out of those 5. So altogether, we have 1 plus 3, which is 4/5. These are the simplest kind of fractions to do. We could also use this for subtraction. For example, if we had 7/10 and we were subtracting 2/10, we would just do 7 minus 2 equals 5/10, and then simplify that because 5/10 is actually the same as 1/2. The reason I know that is because 5 will divide into 5 and into 10. So then I'm just dividing by 5, dividing by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Okay, the second kind of fractions that you might add or subtract have different denominators. So add, subtract with different denominators. In order to do this, you need to find the lowest common number for the denominator. This is actually called the LCM or LCD. So this would be lowest common multiple or lowest common denominator. So the easiest way for me to show you this is with an example. So if I have 2/3 and I'm going to add 1/4, I'm going to bring this over here and write it down because it's easier to convert. And now I have to ask myself, what number will 3 and 4 divide into? One common number that 3 and 4 will divide into that I can convert these fractions to. So in my mind, I'm going to make this little list. The multiples of 3 are 3, 6, 9, 12. And then I'm going to do the same for 4, 4, 8, 12, 16. And you're going to notice that 12 is common on both lists, which means that's our lowest common denominator or multiple for 3 and 4. We will talk about strategies for lowest common denominator and multiple as needed if we need to. So now I have two new fractions and they have the same denominator. So now I need to convert these to equivalent fractions. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to look at the denominators. How many times will 3 divide into 12? Or how many groups of 3 are in 12? So 3 times 4 equals 12. So I do the same on the top. 2 times 4 equals 8. when I multiply the top and the bottom by the same number, I create an equivalent fraction. Down here, 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 3 is 3. Equivalent fraction. So now I'm done making my equivalent fractions. I'm going to add my numerators. 8 plus 3 is 11, and my denominator stays the same. 8 out of 12 and 3 out of 12 combined is simply 11 out of 12, or 11 twelfths. Okay, we can also do that same operation with subtraction. So if I have, for example, 1/2 minus 1/6, I'm going to look at this, and a lot of you aren't going to need to do all of this side work. Some of you still will, but I'm going to model it as if everyone needs to do this. So I'm coming over here, 1/2 minus 1/6. I need the 2 and the 6. I need a common multiple for both of these. And I do know that 2 divides into 6, so that's going to be my new denominator, which means 1/6 is going to stay the same. And 1/2 is going to convert to 6. Well, you could just ask yourself, what is 1/2 of 6? Because that's going to be your new numerator. 1/2 of 6 is 3, but I'm just going to verify this with you. 2 times 3 equals 6. 1 times 3 equals 3. There's more than one way to look at that. So now I'm going to subtract just my numerators. 3 minus 1 is 2, and 6 is my denominator. Okay, so the only thing about this is we need to simplify it now because it is not a simplified fraction. What we do is think of what number we can divide into 2 and into 6 that will simplify it. That number would be 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So 2/6 and 1/3 are equivalent. That was a lot of math for one day, but we have to tackle these and make sure that we understand how to do fractions because it's going to come up again this year. So if you need extra practice problems, definitely check out the Extend section or ask your teacher and they can provide those for you.